been nearly 2 weeks since the launch of Arc Raiders, and the player count just continues to rise, with over the weekend it hitting over 700,000 concurrent players at once, and it's rumoured that Embark have sold over 4 million copies of the game, which is incredible. And since launch there's been many discussions surrounding the game, but one topic has stood above the others. One topic has prevailed since launch: PvE only maps. Should Embark add a PvE only mode? It's natural that when a game sells that many copies, it invites a wide amount of players and therefore opinions and tastes. So, should Arc Raiders add a PvE only mode? I've seen a wide response to this. Yes, it will attract more players and be more fun. No, it will ruin the game. And then I've seen a middle ground. Personally, yes, down the line I would like to see PvE in Arc Raiders, but I do not want to see PvE instances of each of the maps that we've got. I do not want to see straight up PvE modes of what the current iteration of the game is. Before I explain what I would like to see, let me explain the problem of PvE versions of maps. Now, over the years we've seen PvE games add PvP modes and PvP games add PvE modes. Call of Duty, Battlefield, most recently Marvel Rivals adding their PvE Horde mode. Now, whilst they all make sense, it's a very different situation. Marvel Rivals getting a PvE mode does not give the player any distinct advantage in the PvP mode, so if the two overlap, there's no real benefit of playing one over the other. There is a small benefit in games like Call of Duty or Battlefield where yes, you can level up your guns and maybe get quicker progression and therefore better attachments and gadgets and whatever. But Arc Raiders is not just a straight up PvP game, and it's not just a straight up PvE game. The point of Arc Raiders is that it's a PvPvE mode. But Arc Raiders is different, it stands apart from those. It's not just a PvP game and it's not just a PvE game, it is a PvPvE game. It's an extraction shooter. Therefore, the foundations of Arc Raiders doesn't benefit if it becomes a straight up PvP game or a straight up PvE game. So let's say the game added a PvE only mode. How do you incorporate that and still make it fun? Because the point of extraction shooters is going in, getting the good, cool loot and coming out with something juicy, all while having the tension of being other players and the Arc bots to take you out. It's a whole gameplay loop. If you decimate either side, the other players in the game or the Arc bots themselves, you remove a whole component that is fundamental to the experience here. So yeah, the Arc bots are fun to fight, and yeah, other players are fun to fight. But then all of a sudden, if you remove that, but you have the same loot that is widely available, you can then take that loot into the PvP and you've got the advantage. This is not just weapons, it's trinkets, it's materials, it's attachments, it's blueprints. There's a whole different economy in a game like Arc Raiders compared to a random PvP game. So if you just have a PvE only map, it just creates this imbalance. Same with if it was just PvP. If there was a PvEVP version and PvP version, the same thing still applies, because why would you go to the one that's harder if the same loot is available? Arc Raiders has had a gargantuan launch, it's done brilliantly. So right now, if you added a PvE mode, would it sabotage the game in terms of splitting the player count? No, it wouldn't, because it's got enough players. But down the line, if you start having a PvE mode and a PvPvE mode and all that jazz, then yeah, it would start to become a bit of a problem. But the problem lies in the fundamental, the foundations of the game. And you know, there's different things you could do. You could have reduced loot in the PvE mode, so only certain items are available in the PvPvE. I get it. There's definitely ways that you could go around it, but it's not like any other game where the progression is just all about the guns and you rank. This is so much different. Here's another massive problem for me, in that a PvE only mode, I just don't think is very fun, okay? I think the reason that Arc bots are so fun to fight is because of the threat of the other players, okay? Whether you engage with the Arc bots or not also depends on the surrounding of other players as well. So if you know there's another squad on the other side of the corridor and the Arc bots are also in there with you, you're going to be less likely to engage with the Arc bots because you don't want to almost get third-partied by the other people. And for some people, that's the turn-off. That's why they don't like the PvPvE. But that's the nature of the game. Like, there's so many other games where you are just fighting the events. The second part of that is, I think that Arc bots are like quite easy just to fight on their own. Look, don't get me wrong, you can easily get outnumbered and get stung by a wasp and a hornet and then a rocketeer comes and just obliterates you and you're finished. But I think as soon as you play the game for 20-30 hours, and you start to get a Wolfpack grenade, and you start to get yourself a hull cracker, and you're rocking the anvil quite a lot, the arc bots aren't really much of a threat on their own. The threat is the other people who might be in the distance. So whilst the PvE mode at the beginning when you've got limited gear sounds fun, I think quite quickly it'll become pretty boring. Don't get me wrong, I love fighting the arc bots, right? I love seeing a Rocketeer or a Bastion, but if you're in a squad of 2 people, all you need for a Bastion or a Bombardier is like 2 Blaze Grenades and 2 Heavy Fuse Grenades, and they're done. They're finished. So if you just add a PvE only version of that, I don't really see a scenario where it's that fun. And I mean, Embark said it themselves. That's why they moved to an extraction shooter, because it just wasn't really working as a PvE only mode. And let me let you in on something. When the game was announced as PvE and it switched to an extraction shooter, I was gutted. I was sad, because not only was one of my favorite studios in Bungie also working on an extraction shooter, now this game that I love the aesthetic for and had one of the coolest reveal trailers is also shifting this way, and I'm just notoriously arse at PvP. So like when I talk about the overall progression of the game and how it impacts it, and I talk about how whilst I can see PvE working, I can't see the longevity of it, because it would get quite boring quite fast and you just farm the Bastions and the Bombardiers very easily, whereas another player being in the environment makes all the difference in the world to how the game feels to play. Now I've said all of that, but I did say that I would like to see PvE in the game, PvE instances in the game. So what do I really mean by that? There's 2 things that I would like to see down the line in Arc Raiders, and that would be PvE sections within a map, okay? So whilst every single map stays as an extraction shooter of PvEvP, there are little sections within a map, little complexes maybe, that once you enter them, you can only engage in PvE. You can't shoot other players. And what I think is quite interesting and excites me a lot about the potential of Arc Raiders is little dungeon and raid mechanics within the game itself. So let's say Stella Montis we have coming, and it's going to be all these underground tunnels, right? Let's say there's a section within the map that once you enter it, it requires 2 or 3 teams to work together to be able to solve this puzzle and take out a Baron or a Queen or whatever there is coming. And as a result, everyone's got to work together in that small period of time. You can't shoot each other. But then when you leave the PvE zone, the tension remains. And I think that's critical for what this game is. And I think it could really work, because it could be finely tuned for the amount of arc bots that are present there and see what kind of threats there are. So you could have a Bombardier in there and a Bastion and all of them together. And then it requires stuff being done within the time limit. And I think that could be really cool. But then you're not losing the fundamental part of the game that is the extraction shooter. That'd be quite difficult to implement though, given that you would have to have a variety of ways to get out of the PvE bit so people just don't camp outside of the zone. Otherwise, you're just going to do all this hard stuff, come out, and then you just got your little Bill and Bob there just picking you off as soon as you leave the PvE area. So you'd have to have like a lot of different exits and routes. But I could really see that working. I could see that being a little sweet spot in between that allows people to engage in the PvE, makes them excited about it, and it allows that replayability of the PvE stuff, and it's not as boring or monotone as just pure PvE maps. The second thing I'd quite like to see is PvE limited time events. So we saw in the launch trailer, I think it was the Baron everyone's calling, this massive arc robot, and I think at the end of every season, even though there's not going to be wipes or resets, it'd be really cool if in like a 7-day period we just launched a load of art bots onto a map, and for 7 days you can just go and get a load of art gear, okay? And you do it that way. So rather than having just PvE maps all the time, we have a little time in a season right before the expedition ends or whatever, where you can go in and just farm arc robots, and you have massive threats, and it's PvE only, and it's just a lot of fun. It's all about just having fun. Maybe you introduce a new enemy and you have the Baron for the very first time, and you know, we're gonna have things like the King or the Emperor. I don't know, a lot of stuff is like leaked apparently, but I've not seen much of it. And you have all these different arc robots that it's almost acting as like a story point, that you're going in and you're taking down the King for the first time, or the Baron for the first time, or whatever it is. I think that'd be a really fun way to do it and keep people engaged on the PvE side. Almost like, and I know people don't like Fortnite, but the Fortnite end of season events, you know what I mean? And people do love Fortnite, you know what I mean? But the end of season events, that it marks the chapter of the introduction of the Baron, the introduction of the King, the end or the beginning of Stella Montis, whatever it might be, the new map, whatever. And I think that could be really fun and a good way of giving people something to look forward to. Look, if Embark had a PvE only mode, I'm not going to get upset about it. I'll play it, I'll enjoy it. But they said themselves that they moved towards an extraction shooter because they couldn't get PvE to remain interesting or remain fun. And I do think that shows. Like, the arc bots are fun to take down, but they're only fun because of the threat of everyone else around you. I do think that if you fight a Rocketeer over and over again with no threat of other players or Bastions or Bombardiers, they're very easy just to take down once you play the game for a little bit. And when you combine that with the aspect of progression, all of a sudden, it almost just counteracts everything that is the philosophy of what this game is. So, yeah, PvE, look, I'm always there for trying to get more people into a game, but I don't think this should be a priority of Embark because the game is what it is right now. Is it annoying when you do all this cool shit, you get all this amazing loot, and you get a little rat at the tunnel who just pops you and you lose it all, right? Apart from what's in your safety pocket. Of course it is. And it's fine to crash out and be pissed off, but then you just remember it's the nature of the game, and that is not going to be a game for every person. I'm not going to sit here and every time that happens to me, I'm going to be like, yeah, good job, mate. I've been down the mic, I'm fucking giving them everything. But no, what I mean to that is that it's the game. There's so many games that are just bread and butter around PvE, and there's so many games that are so much better in terms of the PvP engagements. This is the meticulous crafting, putting two together, and it working tremendously. I anticipate that as Arc Raiders progresses and people get all the quests done, they start to get all the cool gear, we may see less friendly people, we may see more friendly people, people move on to other games. We don't know what's going to happen. I just think it's all pretty fascinating in terms of how we engage other players in this video game. So, look, I understand the desire for a PvE mode, and I appreciate it. I understand that everyone's got different tastes, and you might dislike this video because you want a PvE mode. But all I ask is that you've really heard me out on this one and understood that it's very difficult when the concept of the game is the mashing of the two together. I'm not saying never say never, and like I said, if it comes, I'll play it, I'll try it, and good for the people who want it, but I don't think it's something that Embark should be working on, apart from the two ideas that I suggested there, and I think they're good little middle grounds. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you want a PvE mode? Do you agree with that little middle ground of like a section within a map or limited time events? I think it could all be fun, but ultimately, I'm just happy that Arc Raiders is doing well. I feel like sticking with it for a long time. I can't believe how much I've enjoyed an extraction shooter when I told you, like, PvE's always been my stuff because I suck at PvP now, but this game has got me by the bollocks. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on PvE modes. What additions would you like to see to Arc Raiders? What are you looking forward to? Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and consider subscribing if you enjoyed it. That's what I do here. Just talk about video games that I enjoy. Regardless, I hope you have a terrific day. Play games, get gains, and I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.